sorry. Nice. No, but
Well, hello everyone, welcome to Political Playback. I'm very excited who my guest host is with me tonight. Well, I'm always excited if it's Bob McCoskrie, but as you know, Bob's a bit under the weather. Things aren't as great as they could be, so I'm not even going to hold around. Peter, welcome to the show.
Good to see you, Simon. Sorry, I'm on the road at the moment, so this is what you call a mobile show. Just driving into Christchurch, cell phone coverage a touch dodgy, which is quite surprising for our second biggest city, but I hope it holds up for the next little while.
Well, you're looking good. I was going to make sort of a joke that you're a very slim picture there. I've clearly put on weight and needed this broader shot. But look, you're coming through loud and clear. And for the naysayers out there, Peter is clearly in the passenger seat. All right, he's in the passenger seat. He's not the driver. And on Political Playback, as talented as he is.
Peter, yes, and my wife has just told me to tell you, Simon, that unlike Wayne Brown, I have my own driver.
I love it. Well, your wife has got it down pat, so kudos there. No, that's great. Well, look, thank you for joining us. And to everyone who's tuning in tonight, welcome. It's lovely to have you here. Just to let you guys know that, like Dennis, if you want to send us a message, you can. Oops, the wrong ones are coming through. I should be able to sort this. Here we go. This is strange. Doesn't matter. I can see the comments. I just won't be able to put them on screen today. Guys, your comments, if you're on the Family First Facebook page or YouTube, we can get them. And I'll put those thoughts and questions to Peter as the next 40 or so minutes goes by. To Dennis, lovely to have you here. As well as Simply Green, welcome. We've got Jackie. Look, everyone coming on board, as I say, for whatever reason, I can't actually get them to come onto screen properly. As you can see, something's playing up. So I'm just going to leave it for now, but I'll be able to read them. Guys, there's no shortage. We've just had the Treaty Principles Bill voted down. We've had Benjamin Doyle coming back to Parliament. We've got David Parker leaving. We've got Andrew Little thinking of coming back. So, Peter, let's just dive straight in. And I'm interested, just going to throw a few clips out there. It's first and foremost around this Benjamin Doyle character. He turned back up on Wednesday. I would be interested when we get to the questions of your take of, again, with your journalistic and media hat on, the choice of day, the choice of week to come back, and then what he said. And I'm just going to play this very short video. It's only a part of his interview, but I think it's quite telling about his perspective on things.
I knew coming to Parliament that I would face prejudice and homophobia. I knew that people would not like the way I dress or speak or the causes that I advocate for. I knew that I would be under scrutiny, as is appropriate for every single person that has the privilege of this position. But I could never imagine or prepare myself to be attacked in such a baseless, personal, and violent way. That my life and that of my child would be threatened. That poisonous, transphobic hate and imported culture wars would be levelled against me and my community, not just by extremists online, but by individuals who hold the highest level of authority in this institution.
I don't even know where to start delving in, Peter, so let's just go broad. Your take on his return to Parliament, how he's pitching. Again, this is only a minute of quite a long conference, but it's very indicative. What's your whole take on how he and the Green Party are handling things?
Well, it's quite extraordinary, really, isn't it, that he was at that press conference yesterday afternoon with no Green Party leader or fellow Green MP in attendance. Those two people surrounding him at the press conference in what apparently is called the Rainbow Room at Parliament. And who knew we have a Rainbow Room in the parliamentary precinct? But one of them apparently is a lecturer in Indigenous Studies at Victoria University. And the other person, the young woman with the purple hair, is one of the leaders of that awful organisation called Inside Out, which is essentially the organisation that goes around our primary schools trying to get primary kids to change their gender. And it's a taxpayer-funded organisation still after a year and a bit of this coalition government. So Benjamin Doyle had no support from his caucus colleagues. He then goes on about transphobia. I'm sorry, but the whole time that this controversy has been going, Simon, there has been no transphobia at all. Nobody is attacking him for his personal sexual preference, weird as you and I think it is. People are attacking him for these appalling photos that have been posted, the ones that involve children and the dreadful words being used in association with those photographs and with those social media posts. That's not transphobia. That's just asking questions along the lines of, I'm sorry, Mr. Doyle, you are saying words, and using that blue swirl, which are signs associated with paedophilia. And that's illegal, as well as being immoral. And that's why people are asking questions about it. It's not transphobic in the slightest. And as far as personal attacks are concerned, well, frankly, you deserve them because you're not answering the questions properly. So that's my take on it, Simon.
Well, you struck how he talked about the violence that he's faced. Again, that conflation, which the left is particularly good at, of conflating physical violence with, if you will, verbal language they don't like. I mean, what's your take on that?
Well, there has been no physical violence against him. Just because he's had some insults online, he calls that violence. I'm sorry, there have been no huge numbers of death threats against him. We know that because there's only been one complaint made with the police. It's just over-egging the situation and trying to elicit sympathy from people by suggesting that what he's suffered is something a lot worse than what MPs cop on a regular basis. I mean, you've been in the beer pit, Simon. You've had conservative views. You've expressed conservative views as a member of Parliament. I'm sure that you've had quite a lot of, shall we say, nasty things said about you in either email or other electronic communication, social media, etc. So this is just, I would have thought, par for the course. And frankly, he's a new MP. If he can't take it, just get out of the fire.
Yeah, it's the old adage, isn't it? If you can't stand the heat, get out of the engine room. And look, I'm not going to go down into this too much, but look, I've had death threats, rape threats, threats against my family, but the really important reason I mentioned that is, firstly, we don't like any of it. I mean, and for anyone viewing, none of us want that to be happening, but the idea that it only happens to some is wrong. And also it's how we choose to use it. So unlike Benjamin Doyle and others, speaking, frankly here, Peter, I never went running off to media trying to be the victim and make a story about myself. And I suppose that's, to put your journalistic hat on, to me, this was all about Benjamin. Very little mention about really anyone else. It was all just about him and how badly treated he had been. I mean, the man doesn't seem to have any sense of the severity of what's being put to him here.
No, that's exactly the point I was making before. He had posts up which were identified by this man, Rhys Williams, who posted on X as Holy Heka Tui Teka. He's now been identified. It seems the media spent far more time identifying this poster on X than they have actually looking at what Benjamin Doyle has posted. But Doyle posted some pretty disgraceful stuff, and I'm sorry, that had to be investigated. Questions had to be asked about what he was posting, and it's hugely telling, isn't it, Simon, that 52 of those posts were taken down. So, and he had been told by the Green Party before he came into Parliament that he should take them down. He decided not to, and frankly, the brown stuff has hit the fan, and he should just be prepared to cop it. He was advised what to do. He thought he knew better because it was, quote, private. He got that horribly wrong, and all I'll say to him is stop playing the victim. The only victim here is possibly your child, and what you've done to that child by bringing, I don't know whether it's a son or a daughter, but by the looks of the photo, it's a very young child, by bringing that child into this controversy. And I just think that is despicable in itself.
Well, I was struck that very little was actually mentioned about the child. I mean, what was your take? And I'm not obviously able, or actually not able, I could play all the interview, but that will bore us all to tears. We don't want you driving off the road. But I mean, what was your sense of the media's questioning of Doyle? Did they actually really delve in and force him
I thought that there was some reasonably hard-nosed questions. I couldn't see. I just heard it. I don't know who some of the reporters were. I understand that Jenna Lynch from Stuff, formerly News Hub, was one of the more hard-nosed questioners there. I understand that a lady called Claudette Hawiti, who these days works for, is it Waiata News or one of the Maori news networks?
She was an MP briefly.
A member of Parliament for the National Party, I seem to remember, wasn't she, Simon? And she seemed to be making statements in sympathy with him, which might surprise many of her former, well, I guess it wouldn't surprise many of her former National Party colleagues. But I thought that some of the questioning that I heard from Jenna Lynch was pretty hard-nosed, and I commend her for that.
I was actually pleased to see that. I mean, it was an opportunity. I mean, from your sense, and I've got my own view, his choice of day and timing, as well as location, was quite fascinating. Is there reflections you've got on that?
Well, it was the middle of the last parliamentary week. I was surprised that he came back at all, to be fair. He took all of last week off when this controversy first came to light after Winston Peters' post. I thought that after missing all of last week, I thought there was every chance that he might not front this week at all, bearing in mind it's the last week before a 3-week recess. So full marks to him for at least fronting. He was supposed to be making a statement in the House, I understood, at the start of question time. That never came to pass. But at least he did the press conference at 3:30. But it was all about him, wasn't it? There was playing the victim card. I've done nothing wrong. This is a transphobic attack. No, no, no. This was an opportunity for him to make statement, try to get some sympathy, but thankfully many in the media were not buying that, and they wanted questions answered, which he was not providing answers to. Because we know from what Mr. Rhys Williams, Holy Heka Tui Teka, has posted, there's some very questionable images that have been put up. And I want to know what involvement this man, because a man he is, I want to know what involvement this man has had with transgender issues, with child sexual education, with the transitioning of young children. I would really like to know what kind of activity he gets up to. But it looks like we're not going to get that now. And the other thing, of course, is what's he doing wearing a beret? Isn't that a sign of a Marxist? Good old-fashioned... I
think you're going to say he's a Frenchman.
Che Guevara hat.
Oh, it's all theatre, says me.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was part of my reflection, Peter. The timing was very deliberate. So good on him turning up eventually. And, for some in the media questioning him. But it was very much the very last moment. He knows very well that the Treaty Principles Bill, a very contentious piece of legislation which the media will focus in on, is today. And then there's 3 weeks. He hopes it will go away. It's certainly my hope that it doesn't, because actually there's still serious questions to be asked here, including the way that he spoke. And I don't mean the intonation, but he was claiming labels of himself which don't fit, including the whole, this was transphobia. Well, he's not someone who identifies as being trans, and yet he's claiming that sobriquet. So there's a whole lot of questions to keep following up here. But you touched on another point, and you preempted me wonderfully, which was, as you say, that these were the people who were with him, junior Green MPs, an academic, and you can't see her, but someone from inside out. As you say, where were the leaders? Are they, in your impression, trying to now distance themselves? Do you think they may be just too busy? What was your take on why Chloe and Marama didn't front with him?
Well, I think they're trying to run for the hills on this matter. I think they realise they made a terrible mistake at putting him at that number on the Green Party list that they did. What was he, number 18 in the end? Mind you, when you're number 18 on the Green Party list and you get whatever they got in the last election, you don't expect number 18 to ever actually get into the House, do you? But such has been the ill discipline and the ridiculous behaviour of so many of the Green MPs that 3 of them have walked. James Shaw obviously just threw up his hands in disgust and went off to the corporate world. And then you've had Darlene Tana and Golriza. We know what's happened to them. So they're 3 MPs down, and before you know it, number 16, number 17 and number 18 are all in there on their $170,000 a year salary. So I suspect that Chloe and Marama Davidson, even though they're not saying it out loud, are just a little embarrassed. In fact, more than a little embarrassed by what's happened, hence their no-show yesterday. Oh, sorry, Simon, did you push something there?
I'm always... Sorry, this is my one recurring fault amongst many. I always hit the mute button and forget. So I was just saying I'm, again, very struck by Chloe and friends steering clear. And obviously the reasons you touched on. But then I was just saying to all our wonderful viewers who are here, particularly on YouTube and on Facebook, the comments are now, I've worked it out, the little glitch, I've managed to sort it. So I can put your comments up, like Ben rightly telling me that I've left my mic off. So if you've got questions or thoughts for me or Peter, which do not involve our credit card PIN numbers, do do let us know.
Hashtag bring back Bob. He's
That's
the
right.
technical whiz.
He is. He's much better. He's much better. So, thinking about obviously the reporting, and I've just yes, there's a little bit more of Benjamin in the past. When you think though of reporting in general, we've also had the situation, Peter, around this little circumstance here. I don't know if hopefully you saw in recent reporting,
Yes.
obviously,
Yes, I
Hamish
do.
Campbell. Yeah, so long and short for people tuning in, Hamish Campbell, National MP, had some people from a religious group come to his family home. That religious group also includes, in the wider, grouping, people who have been accused of abuse. For those of us like myself who are Catholic, we're completely familiar, sadly, with that. In fact, just about every profession. But I suppose the question for you, Peter, and again, you've been in that media industry. I mean, they've by and large, in my view, media, mainstream, I better stress this, mainstream media have gaslit the public or anyone questioning Doyle. You know, there's the RNZ headline again, all focused on Doyle as a person. And yet, my God, did they go after Hamish Campbell for, again, hosting people in his home that have religious views. It seems incredibly hypocritical to me.
Well, just outrageous. And you know what, Simon? The public picked that up very quickly. Here we are on Thursday evening. So it must have been Tuesday night's news. And I was at home and saw that door-stopping effort of Mikey Sherman doing a job on behalf of her colleague, Ryan Boswell, door-stopping Hamish Campbell as he went into the parliamentary building. And I'm thinking, why are you chasing a very innocent National Party MP? It is, at best, it's guilt by association. But frankly, Simon, it's a wonder they didn't doorstop you when various Catholic priests were put away for sexual abuse. I mean, that's the equivalent of it, isn't it? You're a Catholic, Simon O'Connor. Catholic priests have been sent to jail for sexual abuse. What have you got to say about that? Aren't you involved? Aren't you guilty by association with them? I mean, that's the straw they were drawing, and boy, it's a long one. Why weren't they doorstopping Benjamin Doyle at his home in Hamilton last week? Why not go and see him and try and get him to make comment when all the strife and the stories in the headlines? So it was just outrageous behaviour. But like I say, the public were not fooled. The comments on Facebook, on various social media feeds that I saw, they saw right through what One News was up to. It emerged that Peter Lynham, a religious studies lecturer, man I've interviewed quite a bit over the years on various religious and peace and conflict issues. Sorry, we're just going into the setting sun here in Christchair.
It actually looks great.
Peter Lynham is, I understand it, the chair or involved in something in Auckland called the Rainbow Church. And Lynham may well have leaked the story or pushed the story towards TV1 as a way of taking the attention off Benjamin Doyle. So it seemed like a setup right from the off. And it was, in many respects, despicable journalism, but the public saw through it, I'm absolutely certain. And the comments that were on Facebook, in particular on Tuesday night, saw what TV1 was up to. It's a case of, look over here, because there's there's a story there, sort of thing. So let's not look at Benjamin Doyle. Let's put the pressure on the National Party. But
yeah, I thought it was
work, Simon. It didn't work. It didn't work.
No, and I think actually, and I take some solace in this, that I think actually most of the public can see the cheap, hypocritical shot. I posted quite aggressively to social media and actually did an RCR monologue on this, just saying you really can't have enough contempt for the hypocrisy of mainstream media who are doing this, trying to make it equivalent. That somehow, again, last time I checked, Peter, freedom of association still existed in New Zealand. You can have people in your home, and you're dead right. As you say, the Catholics, I'm a Catholic, there's been abuse, but you don't need to tar everybody. And I'd also point out, as I did on, I think it was on LinkedIn, of course, within the media circles, there's been abuse. I mean, granted, it's from the UK, Jimmy Savile comes to mind and others. So no group is innocent, and yet they were more than prepared to target this national MP. Quite a dirty hatchet job.
Yeah, absolutely. But like I say, the public's seen through it. So that will be the end. I can see this whole, what is it called, the 2x2 story falling over pretty quickly. I don't know much about them. Do you know Hamish Campbell at all? I know he went into Parliament after you left, but he seemed, well, he won back the Ilam seat, didn't he? Jerry Brownlee's old seat here in Christchurch, took it off Labor, who won it in that 2020 landslide. So I understand that he's a very intelligent man. He has a doctorate in genetics. He says he's a social liberal. But he and some family members are involved in this particular Christian group. And what's so wrong with that? If people are involved in sexual abuse, let the police handle it. And let's not worry about Mr. Campbell's involvement, or shall we say, just very, very small association with it.
Yep. No, I'm with you. I don't know Hamish well. In fact, I think he's if I've got the right, because as you say, he came into Parliament at a time after me, had some interaction, found him incredibly pleasant. Unfortunately for him, being a new MP, still learning some of the arts of how to deal with the likes of Mikey Sherman, and that, like, you don't have to stop and you don't have to answer questions, particularly when they're completely off-piste. But again, dirty hatchet job, and just disappointing, but we've come to be, I don't know, somewhat used to that. Hey, jumping topics, and again, thank you for everyone sending your comments through, getting a few of them up on screen. Jumping to the Treaty Principles Bill. This is like literally breaking news, because as Peter and I were logging in and setting up, the bill just got voted down, as everyone expected. This was a screenshot I'd just taken a little bit earlier. For me, Peter, it highlights obviously the two sides of this very emotional rhetoric, as one would anticipate in a debate like this from the likes of Hipkins. We know Willie Jackson, dear old Willie, has been kicked out of the House because he was calling, I think, ACT MPs or Seymour a liar. And just for people to understand, you can't use that language. So he got turfed out. And then we've had this little, and I'm just going to play a short video, Peter, this little humdinger as things started in Parliament.
It's a second time. Mr. Speaker, members of this House can still change their mind. Hold it.
Where are the police helping us with this? Now, let me make it very clear. Anyone else in here thinks that that's an acceptable intervention in the activities of this Parliament will be treated harshly by the officers of the law who are here. Completely unacceptable. We live in a democracy. This is the place where opinions are given, not from the gallery.
I better be clear to viewers, that's not indicative of the whole debate. Actually, good on, if I might, good on Jerry actually standing up. I mean, yeah. What's sort of your take around what I would argue, Peter, is this change of sort of, and I'm not trying to lead you here, but it seems that politics is becoming much more performative. We obviously had the whole ripping of paper and the hark, and now we've got some guy screaming and yelling in the gallery, and it's just, where's good solid debate gone, or was it never there?
Oh, it was there, no doubt about it. But these days it appears that the Māori Party and their supporters really know that there's not much you can say against a bill which says Parliament has the right to make laws, that everybody has property rights, and that everybody is equal before the law. Now, there's no way that any sensible person can argue against any of those statements. So therefore, you've got to revert to theatre, to abuse, even the leader of the opposition calling it a grubby little bill. It's so grubby, Chris, that Parliament can't make laws, that everybody is not equal before the law. I mean, let's think it through. And for people to say what they've been saying against this bill is just, it's theatrical, and they haven't looked at not even the small print, just looked at the big print of the bill, which has, the brilliance of Seymour's bill was its simplicity. And the fact that he came up with 3 principles which matched, I believe, the 3 articles, that Parliament has the right to make laws for all New Zealanders, that everybody's property is sacrosanct, and that is now being pushed through, ironically, in the new RMA legislation, or the new resource management legislation, and that everybody in New Zealand, everybody, no matter when your ancestors arrived in this country or when you arrived in this country, everybody is equal before the law. I mean, what can be grubby about that? I'm sorry, I'm just confused. I submitted in favour of the bill. I noticed today that James Meagher, who was the chair of the Select Committee, apologised for the behaviour of some members. He apologised to submitters, I guess, like myself, who were treated disdainfully by members of the committee during our submission. Meagher had the good grace to do that. He seemed to be playing the National Party line. The National Party line, I believe, is wrong. If Tama Potaka says that this bill is really buried, as he, I believe, intimated, he called it Nehu Day, burial day, funeral day, then he's wrong, because this bill, this debate is closed for the moment, but it's going to be open again come the campaign next year. Don't you worry about that. And as Seymour said in his speech, if New Zealanders are so afraid of this debate, let's go to a referendum, let's pass this bill, go to a referendum and see what happens then.
Oh yeah. And look, not a chance. Not a chance.
Not
and this
a chance,
is the
yeah.
It's the paradox,
I tell you one other speech I was surprised about, and it's really intriguing. I guess, again, she's playing her party line, but that's Casey Costello, a woman whom I know through my association with the Taxpayers Union from a couple of years ago. She was for a time chair of the Taxpayers Union, now a New Zealand First MP and Associate Minister of Health, Associate Minister of Police, Minister of Customs, and a really clever and nice and principled woman. She was, of course, also a spokesperson and a trustee for Hobson's Pledge. And Hobson's Pledge, very much in favour of this Treaty Principles Bill. If Casey had not been a New Zealand First MP and playing the New Zealand First line, then obviously I think she would have taken a different course, but a different path in her speech today. But she was speaking on behalf of New Zealand First, and it was just a little bit fudged the way that she suggested that it would be a very complicated bill if this went through, because it would keep on going back to the courts. Of course, the New Zealand First position is to remove all references to the Treaty of Waitangi in our legislation, or most pieces of our legislation. I think there's 28 acts of Parliament, 28 pieces of legislation, which have got this target on them. How far that's going to get, I don't really know, but I tell you what, if the Maori Party was upset by this Treaty Principles Bill, you wait until New Zealand First starts putting in place legislation to remove all references to the Treaty of Waitangi principles in numerous other pieces of legislation. It's going to be lots of fun.
Well, I think that's an earlier point you made. This is not over. I mean, the conversation in some ways has been started. It's out of the bottle. The genie's out of the bottle. I'm struck. I'm struck by the paradox, being diplomatic, that yes, people will celebrate how many people submitted, and I think it's great that actually New Zealanders engage. But at the same time, Peter, but no referendum. We can't do that. So that's fascinating. But there was one comment coming through from.
I'm also worried. I'm also worried, Simon, about how they counted those submissions in terms of those in favour and those opposed. Now, Hobson's Pledge say that they had about 24,000 submissions, obviously in favour of the bill. The ACT Party put through a whole lot of submissions in favour of the bill. Together, those two would total about 40-something thousand. Now, if there were 308,000, that's plus all the other people who submitted in favour of the bill. It just doesn't add up to me, the number of submissions reported as being in favour of it at just 8%. I'm sorry, that just doesn't appear right. I'm told that maybe all those Hobson's Pledge submissions were counted as one because they were pro forma. Well, maybe other groups using submission tools did the same, but each of those were counted individually. I mean, was there discrimination in the way the submissions were counted? It doesn't matter, but it just seems a bit intriguing, those numbers.
Yeah, from somewhere I read, I'm not sure if it was RNZ or Newsroom, that they'd taken the likes of ACT, Hobson's Pledge, I think maybe even the Green Party had set up a submission tool and just counted all their submissions as one. So you're dead right mathematically. Instead of saying 50,000 over 50,000 over 300,000, they've said it's just 2 over 300,000. They've lumped everything together, and again, it just, regardless of the issue, I don't think it helps people's trust in the system when all these games are being played. But I wanted to put to you one question that one of our viewers, Dennis, has said. He's saying the ability to debate and listen to both sides is gone. I mean, is that your take? Are things so hopeless in Parliament now, or is there hope?
Oh, no. In Parliament, they are still debating. Everybody gets to make their speeches. There were 12 speeches in the debate this afternoon, as there are in all speeches, in all debates. People got to say their piece. The gallery is there. It's not like going to a rugby game, is it? The gallery is there to observe. They're not supposed to participate. And that obvious Maori Party supporter trying to participate was out of order. And Jerry was absolutely spot on. But you're right in terms of people's inability to debate, because when you're debating things such as everybody being equal before the law and Parliament having the right to make laws and make legislation for everybody in New Zealand, I mean, how can you possibly push back against it? So the Maori Party have really got no case to argue, so therefore they revert to insults and abuse.
Well, that's that performative side. I mean, my very quick reflection before I take you to the next topic. Parliament is becoming, unfortunately, I think, more performative. People doing more dramatic, emotionally laden activities rather than actually, good, studious debate. And again, we've seen hints of that today.
Yeah. Perhaps that would all quieten down if you took the TV cameras away and if you took the radio broadcasts of it away, and Parliament just basically talked to itself and relied on the press to actually be there to faithfully record word by word or get the record from Hansard about what was said. If we didn't have TV cameras there, do you think there would have been a haka the other week?
I'm actually pleased you say that. Was one of the things that used to frustrate me from time to time. The broadcasting system within the House, within the chamber, would fail. And speaker after speaker would sort of react and try to say, we've got to get out extra microphones, we've got to fix things. And my own view was, I don't care. I'm not here, if you will, to broadcast my words directly to the public. I mean, it's nice to have, but actually I'm here to debate with my colleagues. The House exists to debate within the House. Being able to broadcast is secondary. And
there is a record, isn't there? Every word that's said in the House, Simon, is recorded by those wonderful Hansard recorders. I mean, their shorthand ability is extraordinary, isn't it?
It is. It's it's all there. You can go and look it up. But yeah, it's funny. Again, that performative nature seems to be becoming more and more. Oh no, we can't actually allow the House to function unless we are broadcasting it to the public. And you go, well, actually, we've had hundreds of years where really it is MP to MP. But speaking of that, terrible segue. I'm never very good at these things. And I'm sorry at one level I'm picking on the Green Party, but you know what? They are giving us so many things at the moment. It is hilarious. So you'll recall, Peter, that Tamitha Paul has been about defunding the police. She's saying that people feel more upset seeing police on the beat than not. In fact, there was a survey done a few days ago of only Green Party voters who said, no, actually, they like seeing the police around. But anyway, they put up these billboards. I think it was the Sensible Sentencing Trust that took her own words, and I actually find them quite amusing because they're wonderfully simple, but they get the message across. But the point I'm raising with your good self is this bit of hypocrisy, because at the same time that the Greens are crying almost literally as much figuratively over these ads, they also have a bill before the Parliament allowing more parody and satire. They want more parody and satire of politicians, because at the moment you're not allowed to take photos or videos. But I don't know, if this may be new to you, possibly not. You are a great follower of things political, but here they have this bill, and yet they're getting exceptionally upset when it applies to them. I mean, is this, again, just another double standard?
Well, of course it is. Of course it is. The Greens specialise in hypocrisy. That in fact, being a lefty is all about being a hypocrite, really, in politics. So what Louise Parsons and the Sensible Sentencing Trust have done, I think, is very funny. They've even gone so far as to put in the little tagline along the bottom, because, as you know, the Sensible Sentencing Trust might be breaking electoral law by putting up notices enticing people or suggesting that people vote Green when they know full well that you can't do it without the permission of the party secretary. But they've put a little tagline on saying approved by Louise Parsons Sensible Sentencing Trust and given the appropriate address. So I think it's very funny. But you're right, at the same time, there's this bill about satire going through, and the Greens say, yeah, we've got to have a bit of a laugh. We've got to be able to have satirical material, but obviously they're saying, as long as you're not taking the mickey out of us. So I'm glad that they are having the mickey taken out of them. And, good on the Sensible Sentencing Trust, which has been in abeyance, it would seem, for a year or two. Remember Garth McVicker and his team were going very well with the SST, maybe back 2017 or thereabouts. But it's been a bit quiet lately. But good to see Louise Parsons, who I understand was one of the original SST trustees, has picked up the ball. She's running with it. And according to an interview I heard with her yesterday, they're pretty well funded. So they've got the ability to put up those billboards and to make a point and to take the mickey out of the Greens, and all power to their arm, frankly.
Yeah, I found it, I have to say, quite funny. It reminded me a little bit, I think it was the 2005 election when some wit got stickers made of Mr. Burns, the Simpsons character's head, and then put them over Don Brash's face. Now, having been one of the people who has to put the billboards up, it's a damn nuisance. But in terms of actually achieving its message very succinctly, it was actually very successful. And I have to say, you go, well played. Yet at the same time, the Greens, no sense of humour. And I hope, I don't know if you can see this on your phone, Peter, but this is a little bit of comedy. But Tamitha Paul cancels her defund police campaign after Golriz steals her jacket, which I just thought was, very, very good. Hey, Turney, because look, we're going to echo Bob a bit here. Bob loves his stats and polls. So just some quick reflections. I'll go through a few of these very, very quickly because I'm also conscious of time. So we're seeing a little bit of a shift for National, a little bit of a shift for Labour. So National's just a little bit up, Labour's a little bit down. But strikingly, New Zealand first at 7%. And it's somewhat echoed in the Courier poll, obviously being presented differently here. But again, National basically holding. Labour's down a little again. New Zealand First rising, and then the preferred Prime Minister Luxon's only just ahead of Hipkins, and Winston again doing quite well. And then around all of this, Peter, and this is probably too small for people, but long and short, New Zealanders are seemingly feeling a little bit more optimistic, but only a little around the economy. Things still don't feel good. So when you think, Peter, of these polls, do they sort of reflect where you think things are, or are they missing the point? Is National too high? Is Labour too high? And why is Winston doing so well? Well,
Winston's doing so well because he's doing a fine job as foreign minister. We know that. We know that he also is going to be moving out of the deputy prime ministership next month. So he's beginning to assert himself as the leader of New Zealand First. And that anti-woke or anti-DEI bill that he's planning to put forward is absolutely appealing to his constituents. I'm surprised that Seymour's down to 3% in the preferred prime minister stakes, but he's had such a hammering over the school lunch issue that I guess that was inevitable. And he's had, frankly, quite the hammering also over the treaty principles bill. So, I mean, could he have had any more negative publicity than what he's had in the last 6 months? So for him to be at 3%, when you think about it like that, is probably not a surprise. Excuse me. The great thing, of course, is that Seymour is just such a hard and I think an outstanding politician. Abuse to him, setbacks to him are just like water off a duck's back, and he brushes them off. But obviously, what has happened to him, the all-out media attack, particularly on the school lunch issue, has really resonated now, and the 3% is a reflection of that. Why Hana Rafiti Maipi Clark is on that list, frankly, defies belief. But anyway, apparently 1 in 100 people think that she should be the Prime Minister. Who would have thought? But as for Luxon and Hipkins, both of them, frankly, have pretty uninspiring numbers. You think back to the heyday of Helen Clark, you think back to the heyday of John Key, they had preferred Prime Minister ratings, and Jacinda Ardern as well, preferred Prime Minister ratings up in the 40s, 50s, and I think did Jacinda Ardern at one stage or Key even get into the 60s? I can't remember, but they certainly had preferred Prime Minister numbers at least double what Luxon and Hipkins have got at the moment. So it tells us, frankly, that both the major parties have got, let's be honest, pretty uninspiring leaders at the moment, Simon. That's my opinion of them. If Winston had been able to keep his peace with the National Party, and if he had been the leader of the National Party, well, our history might have changed in this country in the last 30 years.
Indeed, well, Winston would have loved it. Would have loved it. He always thought he was going to be the first Māori MP, Maori PM, but hasn't quite worked out for him. But I think that uninspiring. And look, I would just add, often in the background, and you'll know this, but the polling companies are making a deliberate decision of who they will and will not report on. So there's actually quite a number of MPs who get mentioned in that 1% space. And I suppose that's the quick takeaway for people viewing that, they've put the Māori Party MP in there, but that's a very deliberate decision because actually there are other MPs like someone like a Chris Bishop, for example, or a Nicola Willis, or a Arena Williams, who are on, equivalent of a 1%, but they don't get mentioned. So, But speaking of MP, two last little things. I'm conscious of time. It is about MPs. We're actually going to switch away from having a crack at the Greens. This fella, David Parker's decided he's had enough. What do you think of old David Parker, in terms of his time in Parliament? Because he's been there a long time.
We were talking about hypocrites when it came to the Green Party before. So David Parker qualified as a lawyer, went to work for Anderson Lloyd as a litigation lawyer in Dunedin early in his career. He I couldn't believe this the other day when I read a little piece about his impending retirement from Parliament. He said he was basically making too much money and that he was charging his clients too much when he was a lawyer. So he got out of being a lawyer and he decided to go into business. And he went into business with the late Howard Patterson, who's one of the great capitalists to come out of the southern part of New Zealand. And Parker was therefore involved in some businesses, some of which succeeded wildly, many others which didn't go so well. So David Parker just seemed to be, on one hand, saying, I'm making too much money as a lawyer, our law firm's making too much money, we'll go into business and we'll be entrepreneurs, but we may or may not make a whole lot of money in that as well. I couldn't quite figure out his rationale then. David Parker in recent times, of course, has been famous for trying to get the Labour Party to have a capital gains tax and a wealth tax, both of which I believe will stifle economic growth tremendously. So if that's his way of political thinking, I'm not sorry to see him go. Maybe it's also a reflection halfway through this term that he knows the Labour Party under its current leadership is unlikely to get back on the Treasury benches next time round. If they do, they know that his particular tax regime, i.e. more distributed wealth through capital gains and a wealth tax, is not going to fly politically. It's not going to be Labour Party policy. So he's decided to jump from the ship before it sinks properly. That's my reading of his impending retirement.
Yeah, it echoes a lot of my thinking. I actually got on what I felt quite well with David. I mean, he always thought he was the smartest man in the room, but actually at times he could be very constructive. But as is the want of some politicians, at some moments they can actually be really good to work with, even if you're in opposition to each other. And other times it's incredibly frustrating, and he fits that spot. I'm going to be interested to see what he gets up to next. I suspect there's already a deal done or a job lined up. But I would just add, particularly for people viewing, Family First has a very particular view of David Parker because he was the Attorney General who decided to keep prosecuting the charitable status of Family First all the way up to the Supreme Court, and so cost us an absolute fortune. But there's a funny sort of silver lining, if I might put it that way to people. There's a funny silver lining which comes with this because, of course, forcing Family First out of being a charity has freed us up, and people remain exceptionally generous, and now we're able to do and say whatever we want. So thanks, David, in a strange way. And then the last MP, this fella here, he's wanting to run for the Wellington mayor. What do you think of this, of Andrew Little maybe throwing his hat in the ring?
Well, it's staggering. Like David Parker, you see, Andrew Little has never been... Sorry, David Parker was elected by constituents once, and that was in the old Otago seat when he first went into Parliament, didn't he? He won what is now, I think, a combination of the Waitaki seat and part of Clutha Southland. So he was the MP for Otago in 2002. He lost that to Jackie Dean in 2005. After that, he was a list MP despite standing in various seats around the country. He's now Auckland-based, of course. I think last time he stood in Auckland. So David Parker was effectively unelectable as a constituent MP. Andrew Little is exactly the same. Andrew Little has stood goodness knows how many times in New Plymouth, and never once has he won that constituency, that electorate. He's always been in Parliament as a list MP. So that's why I'm intrigued that he's now going into an election in local body politics to see if he can actually win an election. If he does win the Wellington mayoralty, it'll be the first election he's ever won, Simon. So who knows what the outcome will be? Maybe the Labour Party machine will get behind him, but Wellington, of course, have that funny STV system, don't they, where your preferences down the list are the important numbers. I think Tory Whanau was far from the most popular mayor, and if it had been a first past the post vote last time round, but she won the preferences, and that's why she got in. So maybe the same will happen for Andrew Little too. But certainly it would be not too much of a change in direction, because Andrew Little is a trade union lawyer. I mean, he's a very pleasant man, of course, but essentially he's a trade unionist. He came into Parliament from the trade union movement. and many of the policies that he would take into the Wellington mayoralty, if in fact he won it, would be based on union and socialist thinking. So I don't know how much of a change in direction there would be for the Wellington City Council if he got the top job, bearing in mind it's so far in the hole financially. The Labour Party have never been great at managing their way out of big, deep fiscal holes, are they? So I can't see him being any great solution. What's the old saying? If Andrew Little is the answer, it must be a pretty silly question.
That's right. Yeah, it's funny. I get on, and I'm going to wrap it up here because I know many will want to go and see the 6 o'clock news, and we should let you keep on your travels. But I always got on very well with Andrew personally, and actually really liked. We travelled together to Iraq and Afghanistan. A lot of time for him as a person, but as politics, as you say, Peter, is not that different from Tory whānau. So interesting to know also, and we don't have an answer to this, of why he's looking to run. Maybe he still wants the political bug. Peter, I am conscious of the time for you as much as our viewers. I am so grateful, not only that you've made the time, but you've actually made the technology work coming to us from your phone as you're travelling. And thank, if I might, your lovely wife for not only listening to you as you talk with us here, but doing the driving. But you have a wonderful night.
She's wonderful. And that's the great thing about Apple technology, isn't it? Why does it need to be made in the US? It seems that the way they've manufactured it in China for the last, 20 years, they seem to have done all right making this technology. I think Donald's a bit silly to try and get it back to the US and increase the price by about 120%.
We're going to have to bring you back on and talk Trump and tariffs. But look, Peter, thank you so much for being here. Everyone who has commented and commenting, thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining.
Okay.